Welcome to the first. You have a story. If you look back on your life, you've done things for the first time that no one in your family, in your town, in the country has done. This is Dr. Sandi. You have unknowingly paved the way for others without knowing it or even acknowledging it. This is where you tell your story so that those who come after you can walk in your footsteps to build their own firsts. Hey, everybody, this is Dr. Sandi on the podcast, The First with Dr. Sandi, and today my guest is Kendra T. Allison. Now, did you know that swallowing and feeding are part of a language disorder? I didn't know that. I learned that from Kendra, and one of her legacies is to create the first summit for the 8% of BIPOC speech pathologists so they can meet each other and share learnings on communication disorders. She had a great mentor in college who steered her in the right direction, and that decision became her pathway to being the first in her family to move away from the family, become a speech language pathologist or an SLP, to start a private practice, and to live on her own terms. You can reach Kendra on all her social media handles, which is Kendra, Kendra T. Allison. That's on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Linktree. And her email is also kendratallison@gmail.com. Welcome, Kendra. Hey, everybody. This is Dr. Sandi, and you're on the first podcast with Dr. Sandi. And today, my guest is Kendra Allison. And Kendra is a speech language pathologist. And she's here to tell us about her first because she was one of the first in her family to do that. And she has a bunch of other firsts. So, hey, Kendra, welcome.
Hi, Dr. Sandi. Thank you for having me.
Anytime, anytime. And let's jump right into it. The speech language pathologist. Tell me, what is a speech language pathologist and how did you come to be that?
A speech language pathologist diagnoses and treats communication disorders. And communication disorders can be in four categories, plus there's an auxiliary one. The four categories of communication disorders: if someone has difficulty with articulation, with clearly saying the sounds in the words, if they have a disorder with language, so they have difficulty with their expressive language, putting their ideas together, making sentences, clearly describing things and expressing what they need and they want, or receptively, where it's understanding, following directions and things like that. And then no, that's a separate one. I think I might come back to language. But another language disorder area is fluency. That's what people usually think of stuttering, just like a smooth rate of speech. And then another language disorder is voice. So how you say things with your voice quality, harshness, raspiness, all of those things. And then the social language is kind of in there, mixed of all those, like social pragmatic skills, like that's in the language area actually. So then the fifth auxiliary area is not necessarily a communication disorder, but it is an area that we target and we deal with, is swallowing and feeding. And most people don't realize that, especially because our title is speech language pathologist. So swallowing and feeding is in our wheelhouse, where we address diet consistency or texture, if you are okay to chew whole foods, or if you need them chopped finely, if you need them pureed, if you need your liquids thickened, to safely swallow and feed so that you're not a choking risk. So that's mostly what we do. And then we work for all populations: birth, because we are in the neonatal, the NICU, we're there, and then all the way to senior citizen end of life, because we deal with swallowing and feeding and cognitive and language issues for someone who has, say, end stage dementia, or they have post stroke language disorder called aphasia. So we work with all populations and everyone in between. We do in the middle, a lot of adults who have, say, a traumatic brain injury and they have some type of communication disorder or swallowing and feeding disorder because of that, as well as someone who has stuttering, fluency disorder, because stuttering is one of those things that just because you get speech therapy for it doesn't mean you're never not going to stutter again. And so sometimes you have adults who are stutterers and, you know, they use speech therapy services as a boost or maintenance or something like that. And then as far as the settings that we work, we're in a variety of settings. Most people see us in the school setting and the hospital or clinical setting. We also do a lot of home health. And I think that's all the main points. Let's see what we treat, who we treat, and where we treat. Yes, that is a speech language pathologist.
So I've known babies or parents who had babies that couldn't, they suck and swallow, you know, when they're breastfeeding.
Right.
And I had no idea that's in your realm. I thought there was a nurse specifically for that, but you're saying that how do you work with a baby who can suck and swallow?
So that's not my area of specialty.
Okay.
So I can't really clearly answer that one, but a lot of it is oral motor patterns, teaching the baby the oral motor patterns or redirecting, you know, the one if they have one that's not conducive for suckling, swallowing. So developmentally, and I can say this, developmentally, when we are born and as babies, our tongue pattern movement is back to front, because you have to move your tongue from the back to the front to kind of suckle on a nipple, a bottle nipple, a breast nipple, a pacifier even. And then at some point your swallowing and your oral motor movement matures as we naturally develop, and your pattern moves from front to back. Because when you start drinking from a sippy cup, a straw, a cup, and then you're pulling everything in to swallow it. So
you know, doing the motion as you
uh-huh.
like
And me too. Yeah, I'm moving my head and, you know, I'm not doing it with my tongue because I'm talking. But yeah, you know, I'm trying to paint that picture for you so that I'm glad that you're doing it as you're hearing me say it.
Yeah.
And it's something I'm sure you never even thought about, you know,
I
the
did. I
process.
really didn't.
Yeah.
It's automatic for me. It's automatic, but as you,
Right.
it's a learned behavior from
It
birth.
can be. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what's amazing is that from birth, it is automatic. Most of us do figure it out how to get the intake, you know, as babies. And developmentally, we just as we start moving up to different textures of food, from the puree to chewing more foods to different utensils like the sippy cup and a regular cup, then all of these things just kind of, your mouth just goes along with it. Your oral motor movements just go along with it. But for a baby who has difficulty, maybe because they are premature, or maybe they do have a cleft palate, which is where your lip doesn't fuse or your palate doesn't fuse. They have a cleft lip, cleft palate. They have some type of diagnosis that makes that innate internal understanding of how to feed and swallow, you know, a challenge. So for a speech pathologist who works in that setting, it is working with the parents a lot more too on how to compensate and work with the baby who may have those difficulties, and as well as trying to teach the baby how to retrain, how to train their oral motor movements. So yeah, it's a lot of coaching in that age.
That sounds way more complicated than, you know, you don't really think about all the things that goes into that, right?
Yeah. And I'll say this.
You pluck out your breasts or push the nipple in its mouth, you expect it to know how to do that, but they're just coming out. So I never thought about it until now. That's something to learn, because they eat while they were inside. So how do they automatically know how to do?
Right, right. And to your point about, you said you thought that a nurse did it. So it's everybody. There's usually a team. When a baby has these issues and a baby and the parent has these issues, there's usually a team. So the speech pathologist is on that team, especially one who is a lactation specialist because we can get certified to be that, but they can also be a nurse and a nurse. And it also could be occupational therapists because they deal with oral, motor, and sensory too. So it's a team effort, and we're a part of that team.
Interesting. And so how did you come to be a speech language pathologist? What made you decide that? I know a lot of people, it's a family member or they had an issue, and you know,
Yep.
I wouldn't, that's not something I would gravitate to unless it impacted me.
Exactly. And that's exactly why most people, or I can't say most, I don't have a specific number on it, but a lot of people who are in this field, it is because they've had some previous experience. Just like you said, they either had speech therapy, their loved one had speech therapy or something like that. So they have that experience. I didn't have that at all. So, well, I did, but I didn't know I did. So long story short, when I was in college, I needed a major, didn't have one. I took one of those career exploration class and the test, and of all the things in a box of things that I would be good at or enjoy based on my test answers, speech pathologist was in the box. And there were other things that were kind of related, like educator, child care, something, and some other ones, flower arranger, I can't remember. But of all the things in the box, speech pathologist was the only one I actually didn't know what it was. Everything else I kind of knew, and I was like, yeah, I don't know. So I did some research, and this was the pre-Google era. Okay. So we had to go to the computer lab and use the specialized research portal software or whatever. But I did some research and I learned what a speech pathologist is and does and where we work, everything I just explained. And I learned that there was an intro to speech pathology that would fulfill one of my general education requirements. So I took it because I'm like, okay, I can learn more about it, knock out a requirement and everything, and at least be on some kind of path to figuring out what I want to major in for the rest of my life. Because, when you're in school, that's the mindset. It's like, what do you want to do for the rest of your whole life at 18? So I took that class, and my professor, who later became my mentor, she pulled me aside one day. She asked, was I thinking about majoring in it? Because she said that I was really good with the material. I was really interested in it, which I was. And there weren't many of us in the field because she was a black woman, black doctor of speech pathology. So she said, there aren't many of us in this field. And I thought, oh, okay, well, you're here. It's like I didn't really understand what that meant at the time because my intro to the class was a black woman. Um, yeah, so I took, and I'll circle back to, why that was important later. So I decided to major in it again and doing some more research, and I found that it's a great field. There's so much flexibility, so much variety, and again, all the settings and populations and things that I could work on. I saw it as a pathway to one day having my own business, even though in school that wasn't something that we were taught. Our education process did not include anything about entrepreneurship
No,
and
it
private
doesn't.
practice. It's how to be an
Work
employee
in a company.
clinician.
Yes.
Hmm. Yeah, so I saw it as my pathway to on one day being able to do that. It's interesting, and basically I like the flexibility and variety that when I could change my mind and do something different, but still in this field. It made good money, or as again a college student, I'm like, that's really good money, and it
Yeah.
still is. I gotta say, it is. But of course, you think it's better money, like you're on a path to being rich when you're that young, looking at that. And it can be outsourced. And now we have AI as a thing. This is before AI was even a figment of the imagination. So I was like, okay, it can't be outsourced because I knew what that was. Like people need speech therapists,
Right.
speech therapy live in front of them. Little did I know that technology would develop so that, it does give us more options, but also
That's
more.
you now to utilize that technology, right? to
Yeah, that's
incorporate.
what I was gonna say. Yeah, it's more options, but then also more potential to be displaced, if you will.
Yeah,
Like we can do teletherapy, and teletherapy works really well. And so that again gives us more options to serve our clients, especially the ones in rural areas. But then also, yeah, someone else who is not in your local area could, be serving your clients. And with AI and apps and things, it could leave us a little displaced just because the regular consumer is like, well, I don't need a speech pathologist. I can just do this myself, which that's like any field, I suppose. So,
this is any field. I was just gonna
yeah,
say, this is anything. I could be displaced.
yeah.
And I was reading something yesterday. Oh my gosh, who said it? It was so profound. Oh, this was Miss Duckett, who's now the only African American CEO of a corporation. I think she's the first or the second, or currently the only one, I think. And she said, your job title is rented because
Oh,
someone else can take over that job. You're just renting it out for a certain amount of time. How people got wrapped up into their job titles.
right,
I'm a
right.
VP,
I'm a
yeah,
this
blah,
and I
blah,
gotta
blah.
do. Mm-hmm,
And it's not your title, it's just your title for the moment. And it's the
mm-hmm.
job that you have. Because you get promoted, you take on a different title. That one's
Right,
vacated, right?
right.
So
Or if
she
you
said,
decide to leave or get laid off.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
She said, I always just looked at it as I'm renting a title. That's not who I am.
Mm-hmm,
And when I go, that title goes with it. So, but you have to always take your character with you.
mm-hmm.
It was
Yes.
fun. I read that.
Okay.
This is
I
the truth.
hadn't I hadn't heard the idea said like that. Yeah, that makes sense, especially when people do get really stressed out about the job and feeling like, okay, I can't take off or I got to be on call. I'm always got to check my email and all these things you feel like you have to do because of this job, because of the title that you're in. And it's the most important thing, but really you're just a number too. Like it's
Yeah,
rented, but you're also a number to a lot of companies and businesses. And so when they're like, okay, we're done with you, we'll find
I'm
somebody
going to
else
be
that we can
using
pay
that.
less.
I'm going to use that because as soon as I said, I'm like, you said it so profoundly. I've always
Yeah.
had, like, I'm not my title. I don't have, sometimes I don't even have the Dr. Sandy. Like it pops up and I'm like, oh, why is that
Yeah,
there?
it's funny. That's why I called you Dr. Sandy.
I don't, I'm Sandy no matter where I go,
Hmm.
and
But that one though, so that's a little bit different, I think, than a job title, because that is something that you worked for in your education. They can't take that from you.
correct,
So that's
correct.
one title that they can't. I mean, of course, you do something super negligent and then yeah, but it's still hard to take it from you. So that's
Definitely.
something that you earn. So I like to always give credence to that whenever I'm encountering a
So
Black person who is a doctor. I'm like, I know you worked hard for that. So I'm calling you
it's
doctor.
work. It's work. And
Even my
typically
friends.
working harder.
Yeah.
So what made you move away from your family?
Well, so I'm from Detroit and I went to Western Michigan University. So that was the first step, was moving away from my family to go to college. I was the first person in my immediate family on my mom's side and well, my immediate family period. And then on my extended family, my mom's side and probably my dad's, I want to say one of the few who did go away to college and not do community college or in the area, if going to college or trade school in the area of Detroit. So that was one of the first. And the reason why I did that is because, well, for one thing, nobody else, and I'll just go with my immediate family, had done it before, had gone away, had been able to go away.
Oh,
My father went to the Navy, and then that covered his school. He was a non-traditional student when he went to college, and he went to Wayne State, which is it's not a community college, but it's a big commuter university scattered around downtown Detroit. So the Navy GI Bill was how he was able to go and do that, and he was when did he do that? I think we were around. We were born. So he was an older student and he had kids. So community school. My mom had to work her way through school, through community college, support herself, and be a part of the family household still. My aunt, the same thing. So and so yeah, so I was probably the first person. My grandma never got to go to college, neither one of them. And so I was the first person who was able to go. So I went with scholarships and family support. And then I did do work when I got there. So that was the first step of why. The second reason or the second step of moving away from everyone was when I moved from Western Michigan University to here in Charlotte area. I didn't come to Charlotte first in North Carolina. And the reason why I did that was because when when I was in college, I did undergrad and grad at Western Michigan. I I entertained going somewhere else for grad school to another university, another state, but I didn't want to pay out of state tuition. And the schools I got accepted to, they weren't coming up off the money a little bit. So I'm like, I can't really afford to go away for grad school. And I didn't feel ready at the time to do that. But I knew that I felt that going back to Detroit wasn't going to be how I was going to find myself and develop myself into an adult. I just felt like going back home, I probably wouldn't live with my parents again, but still being in the city, just I didn't feel like that would be
You had
the
your independence.
yeah, the independence and the secret sauce to my success.
It is.
Yeah, so
Once you become independent and you see what you can do and you value your own opinion,
yeah.
right? That's a
And
big part of it. Because you've been out there in the world,
mm-hmm,
you see things a little differently than your family who are,
exactly.
home. And so you bring
Exactly.
outside perspective, and they're
Mhm.
like, Kendra thinks she better than us.
They didn't say that to my face, but I know much to my parents' disdain. I have always been an independent thinker and doing things without really consulting, I mean, asking
Right.
for permission, just the bare minimum of asking for permission that I needed to.
Or
But
ask for it afterwards.
right, exactly. Like, I mean, I just decided, okay, I'm going to apply to schools that are nowhere. I'm not going to stay in Detroit for college. I'm going to apply to schools over here. All right, I'm going there. This is where I'm going. And, and then when I decided to choose speech pathology, I said, hey, this is my major. This is what I'm doing. And again, they were like, but wait a minute, that doesn't make good money, or, because that's always the thing is,
Yeah.
you send especially as a Black family, you send your kids off to college so that they can get a really good degree and make really good money and be better off than you were. So
Yes.
they thought that I wasn't positioning myself in that way when I said, well, this is what I'm majoring, this is what I'm doing. And then, well, I'm moving over here. And so that's all of like what you just said and added to, thank you, was all the reason why I decided to move to somewhere else. Now, I was considering moving to places where I had family or friends already, some kind of community, or I had at least been before. And none of the places on that original list made the cut, and I ended up coming to North Carolina, which was none of those places. I had no family, no friends here. I had never even been here before, so but the job that I applied for and came down and interviewed for, I felt like it was the right place for me. I felt comfortable and everything. And then to a conclusion to this journey of why did I just decide to move away from my family and being an independent thinker. When I came down here to interview for the jobs, my sister, who was a year and a half younger than me in education, she also came with me. She entertained some school districts. She wasn't quite ready to interview for jobs yet because she was still in school. So we came down here for a weekend. I went on 2 job interviews. She talked to 2 school districts. We did a little visiting around Charlotte and Winston-Salem and Greensboro area. And at the end of the weekend, I said, so, we talked about maybe coming down here together. At the end of the weekend, I said, I got the job, I'm taking it and I'm moving. And she said, I'm not moving here. So she decided to stay in Michigan. And after she
She's still
graduated,
there.
Yep. After she graduated, she moved. She went to Western Michigan as well. And after she graduated, she moved back to Detroit area. And she's not the rogue maverick, if you will,
Right.
person that I am. So she lived back home with my parents for a little bit, and then she got married, and then she lived with her husband and her family. And so she's never lived really on her own, and it hasn't been important to her, to do that.
Yeah.
So that's fine.
I honestly can say I probably lived on my own for about 6 months my
Mhm.
whole life.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because like
Yeah.
your sister, you know, I was instrumental to helping out with the family financially. And so
Mhm. Yeah.
mom was a seamstress, and we went to school. We had to get our scholarships or pay our own way. And it
Yeah.
really helped to be there to contribute to the family household.
Yeah.
We, we were able to buy a house and, do other things as a unit, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
No single person could have done it back then at that time.
Yeah.
But my mama still lives downstairs.
Nice. I do
The way
think
it
that,
is.
yeah, and I mean it's great. So my sister and her family, they've moved about an hour from my parents. My parents are divorced too, so living with them is not like living with both of them. But
Mine are too.
yeah, yeah. So they live about an hour from there. So they are able to, but she has kids, and so, you know, um, you know, checking in and everything is a little bit challenging for her for that reason. Um, and so when I think back to my young 21-year-old self, I'm like, man, that was kind of a big step that I took, moving away from everyone that I knew and all of the life experiences I had, even though I had done recreational travel by then with my family and independently. But moving here where I had nobody or anything, like, I don't know if that's something I would do now. I'm 41. I don't know if that's something I would do now at this phase of life.
Well, I can say I finally bought a house. Well, we built a house, my husband and I, in Virginia. Now, this is a challenge. It's been a challenge just getting used to the different environment, the different lifestyle,
Hmm.
the inconvenience of running out to pick up some food at midnight, whether you know, those things are just not
Yes, because that's
available
different than
in the
Brooklyn.
little town.
Yes, 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 yes.
It's
Hmm.
a challenge to get used to it. And so,
Hmm.
when we're going down, my car is full of stuff because I move, I buy all the stuff I want here, and then I cart it all the way to Virginia. And
Right.
my husband be like, they have supermarkets there. I'm like,
Hmm.
first, the supermarket is 5 miles away. It's not at the corner.
Five
When it's
miles.
raining. Secondly, they don't have the same products that we have.
No, they don't.
And you're gonna ask me for
It's
something
more
ridiculous.
national things. Yeah.
And they look at me in the supermarket like, and what's that?
Yes. Yes. So in North Carolina and Charlotte area supermarkets, yeah, if you want to get specialized things or make, ethnic meals and cuisines, you have to go to the international market, which is a separate market, smaller and maybe more similar to what you're used to in Brooklyn,
Yeah.
smaller things. And it's like specialized, but it's not. It's like everyday things
So North
there
Carolina
versus
has
here.
stayed the same. I used
Yeah.
to
And they're
all the
huge, huge supermarkets.
Yeah, I used to go all the time to Lewisburg, North Carolina, where my
Oh,
very first boyfriend was from.
oh.
And so I have prime tobacco. I have picked strawberries and watermelons. And I'm like, this is not the life for me.
Yeah. So is that's something that you learned about yourself in
Yeah,
moving?
oh,
Yeah.
yeah. It's, and I was willing to try. We used to go all the time. His parents had a farm, and we would go down and help out when it's time to bring the crops in the beginning of the year when you had to put the crops down, and then we go and help bring the crops in. And I'm really thankful that I had that experience because I knew at a very young this is not what I want to do. This is just not me. I was good at it because when I do things, I try to be really
Right.
good. And I was really good at it. And I was interested because this is the first time you're actually managing your food source, right?
Mm-hmm.
And understanding how
Where it
farmers
comes from.
think, where it comes from, and how farmers have to think ahead of time on what to plant,
Yeah.
contingency planning. Like, you learned a lot. I learned a lot. And I also learned how to bargain for my price, because
Oh,
his mom would take the tobacco and the food to the market, to the wholesaler, and she would bargain with them. And I watched it. I'm like, no, woman, this is what I want to do. This is the part I know how to do.
okay.
And so she was a really good role model for that. My mom has a different kind of bartering, right? She's the store shopper bartering. But this was
Mm,
dealing back in the early 80s or late 70s with older white men that you're bartering with
yep.
for business and for the livelihood that you spent an entire season to bring in, and you want your money. And I would be
Yeah.
like, go get your money, woman. And what's funny, to wrap up that story, is she had never gone to college. She was similar to what we're talking about. She couldn't afford to go to college. She grew up on a farm. That's what she knew. And she always wanted to have a daycare. She was great with kids. And at 78 years old, I convinced her to go back to college and get her degree, which she did. And she started a daycare.
Wow.
And she
We should
said
get
that
a
was the
degree.
happiest she had ever been. So you never know how our experience impacts other people. And
That's
so
true.
how does being a speech pathologist impacts, the next generation, and what do you do to help that?
Oh, well, that's a good question.
Any
Being a
mentoring, or, helping other younger
Mhm.
people?
So, clinically, as a pathologist or therapist, being a speech pathologist helps the younger generation because starting with being able to give kids, the next generation, a voice, helping them with their voice. I mean, we don't just like give it to them like a Little Mermaid, she gave the little singing voice, but we help them to develop and find their voice. Whatever that is and whatever that looks like for them with the communication. Communication, the ability to communicate in the best way that you can helps to improve your quality of life, and not just yours. Like I like to say, I'm not just changing one person's quality of life. I'm changing the whole family's quality of life,
Yeah,
one kid at a time.
yeah.
Because this child,
Good slogan.
yeah, oh, thank you. This child who is now able to communicate more clearly, more functionally, productively, and efficiently is going to have, most likely, fewer tantrums, fewer behaviors, fewer negative behaviors, and negative social interactions that could shape them or be traumatizing. So that's one way that we are impacting and helping the next generation. And being a speech pathologist and being a Black speech pathologist, one way that I am helping the next generation is by showing them a potential career path of what you could do. Because to your point earlier, Dr. Sandy, that most people don't know what a speech pathologist is unless they have experience with it. I didn't. And also, they don't even know like the title. I mean, the title is also misleading, because when I first learned what an SLP, speech language pathologist, is and does, I thought back to elementary school, to this nice lady. She was always seemed nice. She would come get kids out of class and take them, and they seemed like they were excited to go with her, and they would come back and just like they had a good time. And I was like, oh, I wonder if she was the speech pathologist. I never knew it. And I went to Detroit public schools, mostly Black students. And so she was a nice looking Black lady. And all the teachers, you're like, okay, she's the nice teacher. She's the pretty and the nice teacher. And
Why
so that's
isn't
what
she
you
coming to
remember.
get me out of class?
Right, right, exactly. And so and so now I am that person. And when I go get students, they seem to enjoy it. And I definitely have other students who are like, when are you going to get me? When's my turn? Can I go with you? That's my accent because I work in rural school districts. When's gonna be my turn? I'm like, you don't need me, kid. You're doing all right.
Yeah.
So
And be thankful. And be thankful.
yeah,
Don't need.
yeah. So I try to. I've been being so when you first start working, you're so focused on building a life and building a career. So that's what I was doing for the first 15 years, 16 years. I was focused on learning and getting things right. And, I had a job before I started my private practice. So, keeping my job, being a good clinician, also being a good adult, doing all these adult things. And so now I'm in a place.
Adulting, it's called. Adult.
Adulting, right? Adulting as a professional and having a good job that you want to keep. And so now that I'm in a place I'm more settled in that. And then I started my own business a few years ago. And so now I'm in a place to be intentional about other aspects of development. I've been really intentional about my own personal development, but now kind of reaching back and seeing how I can influence the development in our field, because it is not a very diverse field.
Yeah.
So that's one way that I'm seeing now that I can impact future generations as an SLP, as a Black woman, because I can tell them more. I mean, you see I'm a Black woman, but I can tell you more what I do and why I chose it, and try to be more impactful when I know of people who are deciding or thinking about their career path. Like, I'm always promoting speech pathology, especially if somebody tells me, well, I think I want to do something like medical or something medical or educational. I'm like, speech pathology, perfect blend. And so I'm always trying to recruit, well, especially more intentionally in these last few years. But that's how I'm impacting, by representing, by recruiting, and doing what I can to, mentor and help younger people to get in this field and stay in this field.
Do you consider speech pathology a STEM program? Part of
What
the
STEM?
STEM.
You know what? That's a good question. I think, yes, I thought about that, because it is an element of science to it, speech science. We also, I didn't say this in the umbrella of things that we do, but we also dabble in hearing, because hearing and auditory skills is a part of you being able to communicate effectively. So hearing science, speech science, it is definitely a science. Technology, for the STEM technology, yeah, we use technology again when it comes to assessments, auditory assessments. We use technology and apps and devices to help with feedback, to it's a therapy strategy. Science, technology, what's the engineering?
Engineering.
If I think about the broad
And there's STEAM,
definition.
which is arts, but I would think you have to engineer when you build the equipment to understand and to help the students. So there's an
Right.
engineering to that.
Yes. And when we think about what the definition of engineering is, I don't know what it actually is, but I'm thinking of it's basically building and creating systems, right?
Yes,
To accomplish something or to affect the outcome.
correct.
Boom. We do that all the time. We always like, we're engineering therapy sessions, to do that very thing, a system, a process to target a goal that we set, and then reach a desired outcome, in that process. So we do engineering.
I'm
And
going to hook you up with enterprising women because they have a mentoring program that takes place in a lot of high schools in Charlotte and the surrounding areas. Monica Smiley is the head of that. I do
okay.
that here in New York. I chair the program here in New York. And we go into schools, underserved schools, and we bring careers that a lot of young girls, especially in a STEM program, in a STEM high school, they've never seen before. These
Right.
are people they've never been exposed to, like you, to even think about it as a career
Mm-hmm.
option. And when we
Mm-hmm.
bring people in, they're always so shocked. They're like, I didn't realize I could do that. The engineering I'm learning here in a STEM program, I didn't know I could use it for that. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's really good to open up the pathways to others. And that I find is one of the best ways, is just to expose them to it and to get them to understand. And the last one we did, someone walked up to me and said, now I'm a girl with options. She is a high
Yeah.
school student going into college,
Nice.
not knowing, like you said, when you go to college, I don't know what I'm going to do. I know I'm good at math, I'm good at science, I'm good at these
Mm-hmm.
things which are traditionally male dominated,
Right.
and maybe I'll be a nurse, you know,
Mm-hmm.
there. And she just walked away, and I was so shocked. She said, I'm a girl with options
With
now.
options.
I said,
That's
wow,
great.
did that in one session of, exposing them. We brought a lot of different people. And so I'm going to hook you up with Monica
Okay.
so that you can start going into the schools and letting these young high school girls know that this is a
Yeah.
career option for them.
Yeah, and that's something I've been really trying to do more intentionally. I work in a school system and I work at a high school through that contract. And so when I've noticed this year when they've been having career things, career building things, I've been trying to sign up for it. Like they had something where it was a guest speaker, to talk about a career. And usually those kind of things are the standard good professions of teacher, doctor, lawyer, fire person, police officer, and then because for the wild card, I always feel like forensic psychologist because people watch CSI a lot. So
Me,
yeah. So I know people, I remember in school, it's like, oh, what do you want to be? I want to be a forensic psychologist. It's like, and I'm thinking, why do you even know what that is? Because of TV. So because you see
yeah.
it on TV,
I
and we're
stopped
not on
watching.
TV enough.
It's too scary. I stopped
Oh
watching.
yeah, yeah. I'm writing down this question about the STEM field because it definitely made me think, yeah, a certain way. So that's a good content post.
So now, knowing that you've done all these firsts for your family, for yourself, does it make you more braver, more courageous to go start something new that you haven't done before?
It does. It does. Well, I'm gonna add the A because you said the STEAM. I think it fits too because arts. We definitely
Yeah,
are. It is an
there are a
art.
lot of STEAM
Communication is an art.
programs.
Social skills is an art, and then math. We do a lot of math. Okay. Do I believe that being the first and doing these other things as the first person it has given me the confidence and emboldened me to do new things? Yes,
Yes,
it has, because when you think about it in the context of things that you've done and accomplished, an accomplishment is different. I'm not saying like
true.
everything was super successful, knocked out of the park on the first try, but accomplished in the sense of you at least tried it and at least tried your best. So, in thinking about the things that I've accomplished and achieved, it's like, oh man, like I said, thinking back on it, I moved all the way from from one state far to another one. I mean, not even the next state over,
Right.
far to another one, away from everybody and everything, to a place where, and I didn't even move to Charlotte. I moved to a rural county because that's where I was going to start working. And I wanted to live close to work and find my way around there and then explore Charlotte. And so I moved to a country town that I didn't have anybody or any support in. And it was a good I lived about an hour from Charlotte. So it wasn't like I could get to a bigger city that quickly. And what I learned there is that those kind of towns, like, it was actually pretty cool. I enjoyed it. But those are better if you have a social network already. Like people who are
Yeah.
from there and grow up there, they have a social network.
Hard to let
They
in
went to school.
outsiders.
Right. And so being an outsider and alone, I was, in my apartment alone a lot, unless I, packed up my bag and made a plan and went to Charlotte for the weekend, which is what I did.
Okay.
So Yeah, so doing those things definitely has helped to increase my confidence or my gumption, to use an older word, for doing new things. Something that I haven't done before, and not letting the idea of, oh, I've never done it before as the reason to not do it. Because it's
And I'm
really easy to get
sure
stuck
that's
in
going to
that.
trickle down to your children and to the people around you who look at you and go, well, Kendra moved to, moved away from us. So the next generation coming up might do the same thing. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there are pros and cons to that as I get
Mm-hmm.
older. And
Yeah.
my mom, also is older, and both my parents are alive. My dad lives around the
Me
corner.
too. Yeah.
But it makes it easier for me when I'm here and I'm not worrying as much about things. And
Yes.
my mom's downstairs, she's had several surgeries, so you're there, you're not feeling like, oh, I wish I was there. So there are a lot of pluses to that. Now, the downside is they're always in your business still.
Oh, yeah.
You're still a little girl, no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah.
You learn to manage that as an adult, you know,
Yeah.
say the right
Well,
things and not make them feel like, hey, it's not your deal here, it's mine.
and to that point, so in the phase I am right now, I'm definitely thinking about that more. And that's why it's also important to me, and it has been for quite a while, to set up my life and build it so that I can be the caregiver and the support that they need when and if they need it. Whether that means being able to go and stay in Detroit area for a little bit, work from home, or work remotely to care for them if I need to, like being able to have that flexibility. And to that point also, so my partner, he is from Charlotte. So his family is here. And so I'm able to be his father just moved in with us because he needs care. And so I'm able to be a part of that village and be a caregiver for him in a way that I'm not for my parents. They haven't needed it. When my
Right.
mom broke her foot last year, I moved things around and went there and did a lot of things for her and everything. And my sister and I, we tag team it. But they haven't needed it, but I'm not able to be, or in order to be able to be a caregiver for them, like I am able to be a part of the caregiving team for my father in love, it would require a lot of uprooting. Either I
Yeah.
gotta go there and stay for a while, an extended stay,
And we
or
have to,
we're gonna have to go there and pack them up and bring them down here to live against
yeah,
their will, because I
yeah.
haven't been able to convince them to move down here yet. I've been trying.
They come to visit? Have they come to visit
They
you?
do come to visit. Yeah, they do. But it has, I don't think it's enough. I think that, a lot of the burden of visitation in relationship is on me, and that's probably because I'm the one who moved away. So for us, it's like I got to go there to visit them so that we,
I honestly have to
see each
say,
other.
I always thought when you get older, you move to like a more rural area, suburban area where life is
Yeah.
slower. And as I get older, I'm in my 60s. So
Hmm.
as I get older, I find having convenience of my doctor close by
Yeah.
is really good, to be
Yeah.
able to take public transportation, because like my mom doesn't like to drive at night anymore. She doesn't, there's certain things you just don't want to do as you get older.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And so all that accessibility, she's still able, if she wants to go to the drugstore, she can just walk and pick up her stuff. If she wants to get a thing of milk, she can push her little cart, or if she doesn't feel like driving, and go to the store. So I find, as you get older, even a house, right? A house is too much for you to manage, and an apartment is probably more convenient as you get
Hmm.
older. So there are a
Yeah.
lot of pluses to say, yes, you can stay there. On the other hand, the crime rate might be high. You don't want them going out.
Well, and they're in Detroit area. So Detroit, Detroit and Michigan is not a big public transportation city anyway. So they don't have those convenience anyway. They have to drive themselves. So, for me to go there, I'm if they need it, then I'm driving them, or if they come
Right,
here, it'd be the same
right.
difference. So I guess that's one of the good things about where I did choose to move versus where I came from is that there are similarities in the two cities, and that, those there's a lot of good public services like a lot of states have, but also, public transportation is not a thing that they're used to. It's not something. So yeah, I've been thinking about that, and kind of making plans in the best way that I can. And I've been telling them, this is what I'm doing, and so if you need it, this is what we might have to do. You might have to come
Yeah.
down here, and so keep an eye out for. We live in a small house, so either staying here with us or renting
But
something nearby, but
there are
they're
a lot of over
already
55 communities.
right
Up
finding
and
those.
down.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is really good, Kendra. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you, Dr. Sandi.
you. This is Dr. Sandi. Thank you so much for sharing your journey on the first, where no two stories are alike, even if the circumstances are similar. Let this discussion serve as inspiration for others to show what's possible, and more importantly, to produce seconds and thirds.